Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Impact Review January 31st. You see from the title below that we had something going on in Impact in Manchester, England. Was this great for the show? Was it just effective? Was this a piece of crap? This is what we're getting into. I'm not doing these in order. If you always want them in order, you're not getting it. I'm going to say that I'm disappointed in several things. One, I was disappointed about... See it like this. The Joseph Park character is good. I like Joseph Park. I'm glad they're still sticking with it. I'm glad they're letting him stay, the Abyss staying with his character he currently has as Joseph Park. One thing I was disappointed was not the segment that he spoke. He spoke very well. The E.T., Robbie E and Robbie T, that's where I'm disappointed. Why is Rob Terry still with Robbie E? I thought that after that little bit with Miss Tessmacher, I thought they were going to finally split away. So I'm actually quite confused why Rob Terry is still with Robbie E. I don't understand. If they're going to try and drag this out, there's supposed to be more... There's supposed to be more of a conflict between Rob Terry and Robbie E. Eventually, they're supposed to have a match where Rob Terry is supposed to easily get over Robbie T. It's easy. But the problem is they're not doing it. So they tease Rob Terry splitting off, but still leave him. I don't get it. The match with Joseph Park and with Robbie E, it was meant to get Joseph Park over. We already know this. It wasn't that bad of a match. It wasn't. Less of the Abyss was shown. It was more about Joseph Park beginning to get over. The Abyss character was not really seen, where the split personality would come out when you see the blood and go, ah! With his eyes bugging out. You did see his eyes bug out once when he really got into it. But other than that, there was no blood. So he got over. It was a good, effective segment. That was all. It wasn't an exciting one, but it was effective. Now, the bit I really did like, but it was mediocre, the match, was Austin Aries and Robert Roode segment. Those two are just gold in the ring. They are when they talk. When Hernandez and Chavo came in, there wasn't that great interest. They have no real charisma. I'm not saying Chavo isn't good as a talker. He can talk. But in this case, there's no real strength in that tag team. They're just average. And like I've said so many times, especially when it comes to Hernandez, as I said before, Hernandez is a strong, silent type of person. But sometimes Hernandez really needs to talk. I know Hernandez can talk. He has been known that he can't speak. But sometimes it's necessary for a strong and silent type to speak from time to time. And leaving this all on Chavo, who is really not a great talker. He doesn't give up a lot of charisma. He doesn't. Particularly as a face. He doesn't give off that type of charisma. It felt flat with them. The match itself with Austin Aries and Chavo wasn't a bad match. It was short, which was very good. Chavo loses to Austin Aries due to outside interference from Robert Roode. No problem. Now they're going to go after the tag team belts. And I wish to say during the promo segment, it was stated honestly by Austin Aries that those tag titles are the easiest titles and the weakest titles. He didn't say in those words, but that's what he was implying. The tag team division in both TNA and WWE are very weak. It's obvious. You can't say Hell No is getting a lot of prominent time, but they have no one to go up against. No different here. Hopefully when Austin Aries and Robert Roode gets the belts, there'll be more interest. Now, Bad Influence, I must say I'm quite interested in. They're very good and they open the show. Bad Influence as Braveheart. Now you know, we must fight. My brothers and sisters. I do a very bad Scottish accent because that's what they nailed on. They wanted to be Scots. And the craziest thing I always remember, when you saw Braveheart, you saw an Australian acting like a Scotsman. They couldn't get a Scotsman to act like a to play a Scotsman. Had to get an Australian. Seriously? But anyway, if you see the segment for what it was, Bad Influence, which is Kaz and Daniels, are really getting very over as a heel tag team. They don't even need to be a tag team anymore, since Christopher Daniels is the major part of that team. Like I said before, I really believe Kazarian was going to become a manager for a while. Very on and off will he become either a tag team with Christopher Daniels, or he'll do a match by himself. He's going to be a manager from now on, because Chris is the one who's the most dominant between the two. And as I said before, third best heel in that company. He is. So when Magnus came out and challenged him, it wasn't bad. Really, it wasn't. Oh, no. He didn't challenge him. He kicked his ass. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the next match, which wasn't very great. It wasn't. When it came to Devon and Magnus, I didn't see anything there. Really. I didn't. DQ, which could still lead into Magnus getting the TV title, which would be good. It's still an effective segment, still an effective match. But the question is this: how far are they going to put Magnus over? How far? There wasn't no real excitement between Devon and Magnus. None. And the only interest I had was Bad Influence. And they got their asses kicked by Magnus. But still, things were needed to be done, and they got done. That's the most important thing. Now, the Bully Ray segment with Sting, Hogan, and Brooke. And Brooke has still some nice curves. She has some small boobs, but she still is a beautiful woman. And I've always said this: even if you like big boobed women, I'm no different. A woman can still be a gorgeous looking woman, no matter if she has big boobs or not. You just got to look at the entire package. I have to admit that Brooke needs to get a touch up on her roots, because if she is a dirty blonde, that dirty blonde's coming back. They were hoping that Hogan would come out, which he did. Hogan reinstated Bully Ray, which was necessary. Now Sting and Bully Ray against two members of Aces and Eights. Could this be what I think it is? No. I'll leave that at the end. But you know what? It still did what it needed to do for the next Impact. Now, the segment next I wish to talk about is Dixie Carter. Now hearing that Dixie has decided, with everybody else who's in the back in TNA, have decided now, instead of staying in Tampa, Florida, which they've done for the last 8 years, very rarely they go on location. It's always been known that when you stay in one place, you don't have to worry about paying the owners of the arena so much. You don't have to worry about gas. You don't have to worry about equipment breaking because of transport. It's always cost effective to have a location to do your shows. The drawback is that when you do that, it becomes stale. You could have the same person come in every day from the same impact zone. You see them, they're not always enthusiastic. You can get the same crowd of people, which could be almost 1,000 if you're lucky, or a couple of hundred. It's empty a lot of times and it's boring. That's one of the drawbacks to it. So Dixie Carter said after March 14th, we're having Impact now going live on the road. Yeah, baby. Finally, TNA, you finally figured it out. There is a risk doing this, yes. Your cost overruns will happen. You will have to pay maybe 3 times normal. That does not mean you will not get 5 times back, which can easily offset the 3 times you're going to lose. A lot of times you really need to go on the road. If you do not go on the road, people do not get an interest in your product, because for the simple fact, the more you stay in one place, it's stale. You see a lot of times the same crowd of people who don't have the same interest. What makes it for people on television isn't that you have good matches or good storylines or good products, shirts, toy belts, stuff like that. It's the crowd that is at the arena or at your show. They can really bring up the product. And during the night, this was what made Impact interesting for me, because the crowd was really into this. The UK crowd, and if there's a whole bunch of UK people watching this, I love you, because you give way more energy than Americans. I'm sorry. You do. Because it's more stronger there than it is here. Not saying that Americans don't love it. And please, my fellow Americans, if I was your president, I am not saying you do not love your country and love yourselves, but you just don't have the interest in an arena as the UK fans do. There's no shame in it, and hopefully one day our interest will increase again. Maybe the golden age of wrestling will come back for us. But in UK, it's more stronger. It's obvious. They give a lot more cheers, a lot more interest. But this is a good thing that Dixie Carter and the brass in the back of TNA made this decision. If Hogan was involved in it, thank you, Hogan. If Bischoff was in there and he made the decision, or Pritchard, thank you, both of you guys. Whoever made the decision, that's good. Now, the mixed tag, which is basically Velvet Sky and Storm versus the two girls, that is Jessie and Tara. This was a standard mixed tag match. It wasn't really that great. But you know what made it more interesting? Seeing James Storm. The people were happy to see him. The people were enjoying him actually doing his business in the ring. And that was the key of it. That was. And I wish to say that Taz said right before the match started, why would James Storm actually team up with Velvet Sky? Those big tits. Duh. If he's saying that, she's like this. If you're not a man who likes big breasts, you're not a man who likes small breasts. Those are breasts showing. She's not ugly. She's pretty. She has nice boobs. You do the math. If you're going to go by a storyline, boobs. Boobies. Who wouldn't want them? Who wouldn't love a pair of beautiful breasts from one of the beautiful people? I think I kind of went overboard. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But the match itself was just a standard, ordinary mixed tag match. But it felt better with James Storm there, because we don't see him often to wrestle. We don't see him often on the show. I know he has been there, but there's been nothing for him to do. I'm not too fond, and he's in basically a thrown together match. I'm not, but just seeing James Storm, period, makes me happy. Now, let's see here. I'm making sure I don't forget anything. The angle, might as well get this over with now, because I'm at the end anyway. The Angle, Joe, and the Traitor Twins, no, not the Traitor Twins, what am I going to call them? The now heel twins, or Traitor Twins, I don't know which one I may use. When you see Garrett and Wes, you don't see anything there. I thought there was something going on with Joe. And I realized that was a hint that he could, and a lot of people how can I describe this? Some people say you can just feel there's something wrong with somebody, so you act a certain way. Joe was acting like that, trying to give the crowds hint that Garrett and Wes, there was something wrong with them. He was that trigger for that, which is good. I'm glad that happened, because it does, in a sense, exonerate me. I'm not saying that I was the first person to think Garrett Bischoff could be a part of Ace and Sinead. I'm sure more than a few people thought this. But I think I'm the first one to actually put it in my description of my video. And I will connect this in this Impact. I will. It's a good possibility that a lot of people thought that Garrett could have been the one that we saw who hit Austin Aries months ago was him. They tried to say it was somebody else. I've said that had to be Garrett. And I said that months ago. If I am the first person that actually was willing to actually state it, then I'm very happy and I feel exonerated for it. I know the Off the Rope show and the Slug Daddy might have said it right around the same time as me. I know he probably said it. I know it. If it wasn't at the same time, maybe a little bit after me, I'm not sure. But if he thought it well before me, I'm not having a problem with it. But I'm actually glad that I was right. So the steel cage match wasn't bad. It was good. The crowd said this was awesome. They were really into it. I also wish to say that Anderson not only did well in the cage, he also did well with his backstage segment. It wasn't that bad. And he was wearing the full Aces and Eights clothes with the vest and his regular clothes, which was needed. He could not just go as an ordinary Mr. Anderson. He had to go in the Aces and Eights with the hat, with the vest, with his regular clothes. The match, like I said, was good. It wasn't an astounding match, but it's not meant to be. It was meant to be the catalyst for what happened. After Angle puts him into the ankle lock and he wins, we get one Aces and Eight member crawling over the steel cage. Now Joe was not there, as you already know, because he got laid out early, and we now know who did it. Because the Aces and Eights member who came out, who was in the middle of the ring, and when Wes, who went with our wonderful cyborg Kurt Angle, got into the ring and locked it up, Garrett and the crowd was actually surprised. Cool. If that was canned heat or canned surprise, it was necessary because you need it. But if it was actual surprise by the crowd, no problem. West takes out Angle's leg and they proceed to beat the shit out of him. What it did here was what was necessary for the Aces and Eights storyline. They needed to progress. Now, taking all this in, what did I feel about this and what was my rating? Was this a great impact? No. It wasn't any more than above standard. Was it effective? Yes. We now know the Austin Aries, and we now know that Robert Roode is going to go after the titles. We had maybe a possible feud between Magnus and Devon for the title, for the TV title, maybe because there was a DQ. We now know that Velvet Sky is going to be fighting Tara. They just continued it. Wasn't that much great interest? No. We now know that Joseph Park is getting over with the people, which is very important. We need that. Hopefully he's going to have a match with someone good. Dixie Carter has now announced that they're going on the road after March and now are going to be doing their taping or their live shows on location instead of going into Tampa and doing it in the regular Impact, which is great. There will be some cost for them, but in the long run, they'll be doing much better. It's what we need. And in the end, when it comes down to it, Aces and Eights needed to do some reveals, and they got 2 reveals that were necessary that could still lead into getting the President show. I say this is a B- show. It was effective because it progressed what it needed, but it was not good impact at all. But it was necessary. And I wish to say for Garrett and Wes, now that they're the heel twins, we needed them. I know people are going to say there's nothing there, they're boring, and I agree with you. They have not gotten over. There's no interest between them. They weren't pushed and they're not gotten over. But now we needed this reveal because one, it's possible that Garrett's dad is involved in this, or an even more interesting thing, which can keep you off balance. What happened if one of the Briscoe brothers is one of the actual people who's doing this? Jerry Briscoe, maybe. I think no. One of the Briscoe brothers, because one of them is, unfortunately, deceased. We may actually get a Briscoe there. He may be involved in it. I know he's involved in WWE, but maybe he might get involved. You never know. But we already know that Garrett's dad is still involved in TNA one way or another, so maybe he will be the one that's revealed. Or the one who will not be named. I don't think I want to see him back. Ugh. And see his wife? No. I'm hoping it's not them, because really, there's not going to be any interest. It's just going to go in the dirt. Bischoff's a little more interesting than the one that shall not be named. So I hope you enjoyed this Zane's view of Impact January 31st. Subscribe and comment to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be very happy to hear what you think about this Impact. If you think I really need to review it again and see the best about it or the worst. And you guys have a good day. See ya.